Informal assessment has to do with the check-ins that are done on a daily basis in the classroom. They are considered informal because they're not tied to a grade, but rather they're used to drive further instruction. Informal assessment helps me as a teacher determine which students need enrichment and which students might need to be challenged more. The 4 types of informal assessment that I'm going to be focusing on are observation, class discussion, rating scales, and exit tickets. These are 4 very different types of assessment that are very beneficial in different scenarios. All of these types of informal assessments can at times be improved or made more accessible to students through the use of assistive technology and ed tech tools. Observation has to do with looking to see how students are doing a particular problem, checking homework, or looking out for off-task behaviors. Observation is beneficial because it allows for quick check-ins to either reinforce the correct skills or to stop students from making repeated errors. The biggest tool that has transformed my ability to observe in my classroom is Microsoft's OneNote. All of my students use OneNote on their one-to-one devices to take notes and to do their homework. And this allows me to look at any student's work at any time, in or out of the classroom. One downfall is that some of my students prefer paper copies over using their laptop. This makes it a little bit harder for me to check in with all of my students. And of course, there's always the possibility of technology or syncing errors. Class discussions are a way of interviewing students to either review material, brainstorm problems, or to make connections. I have used OneNote's collaboration space as well as Canvas's discussion boards to have class discussions online. One benefit of using these tools is that the discussions can be done at home or at school. And I've also seen that it helps students participate that might not typically volunteer during class. And of course, it allows for all students to share their ideas at the same time. It is important to keep in mind that some students' responses might be a little misunderstood by others, and unfortunately, their responses could be coming from something that they found on the internet. Rating scales are a very informal way that I have students self-assess their understanding of material. These give me a quick idea of who's feeling confident, who's a little iffy, and who is totally lost. I have students either rate themselves on a 0 to 5 scale during lessons, or I have students leave a question or takeaway from class in green, yellow, or red bins. Email and Microsoft Forms can make these check-ins easier for my students who have fine motor skills because typing is a lot easier than writing down their thoughts. These technologies are good for quick feedback when I'm doing a rating scale as a closing activity, but they can make it a little bit harder to do a quick check during the lesson. Exit tickets are a type of work sample that help me check for student understanding of a lesson and to help me make groups or change instruction in the following days. Quizzes, Socrative, and Microsoft Forms allow exit tickets to give both myself and my students instant feedback. This is huge because then my students can see what they're doing wrong before leaving class, and then hopefully they'll not repeat those same errors during their homework. There are always issues with these tools being too hard for math because students are unable to show work and because it is hard to type math equations, but luckily most of these tools are getting much easier to use every year. Overall, informal assessment helps teachers see what's working and what they need to adjust in the coming lessons. It helps me personally check in with students to see who needs more help and who might need to be more challenged. Assistive technology and ed tech tools allow for these informal assessments to happen at home or school and make it possible to give more immediate feedback. Of course, they all have their drawbacks, so we always have to weigh the pros and cons with our students' learning as our first priority.